Hello, hello, this is Sarah Neff, and we are playing Creativerse Gone Wired. This video is part of a series of step-by-step tutorials that assume no previous experience with circuitry, virtual or otherwise. In our third video, we spent time with the three operations of the logic gate, AND, OR, and XOR, and their inversions, NAND, NOR, and XNOR. In this supplemental video, we'll add a power switch to our beacon and talk about gate delay. In our last tutorial video, we had added a power switch to our 1-second clock. Let's go ahead and review that now. Here we have our inverter, our delay, which is already set for 5 seconds, and an LED. We know if we hook up the inverter to the delay and the delay back to the inverter and to the LED, we can potentially get a 1-second clock. Of course, we have to add a power switch, get the inverter going because it's quite sensitive, and once it starts, there it goes, over and over and over again in a cycle, but we have no way to stop it. We add our power switch with an AND gate, and remember, placing any logic gate, the default setting is AND. Output's true if input 1 and input 2 are true. We're going to put that in between our inverter and our delay. So let's go ahead and clear the link. And for good measure, clear the link on the delay as well. Add our AND to the delay. We need a power switch. Connect the power switch to the AND and the inverter to the AND and get it started. Works perfectly well. You can actually really see the cycle here as it goes from the AND to the delay and back to the inverter in a nice 3-piece set with the two extremities of the switch input and the light output. This is a nice, easy, small cycle between the delay and the inverter. Did we have to put the AND here? Could we have put it in between the inverter and the delay? Let's try it over here. See, we need our LED. We want a switch. And we'll put the inverter over here. So we'll take our switch, bring it over to our AND gate. Our AND gate will go out to the inverter. The inverter will go to the delay next, and the delay to the open input of the AND gate. And then, of course, the delay to the LED. What happens? Whoops! I forgot to set my delay. 1/2 second, please. There we go. Although that was nice and fast if you need a quick strobe. It works just as well. And in fact, we've gone from the AND to the inverter. And then inverter. And AND doesn't have any other outputs. Is there a way we can simplify this? As we learned in our last video, AND followed by an inverter is the same thing as NAND, not AND. So let's send our NAND to the delay. Hey, works fine. And now we have a very simple design. Only 2 to complete the cycle. And with the arrows, you can actually see them really go back and forth. Let's go back to our power switch and turn it off. Oh, That won't work. If we want the power switch to be in the false position and have the light off, then something is wrong here. Do you know what it is? It's the NAND gate. It's receiving one false input and one true input. How is it receiving a true input? Because it outputs true, which feeds into the delay, which also outputs true, keeping it stuck in this state. Well, that won't work. We can put our inverter back in before, well, no, that'll be stuck in the same position. This will not work. Let's try this again. Clear our machines of all our variables. The output is incorrect for our switch. So why don't we change the inversion, or invert the output, right before the LED? We'll do the same thing as before. We'll turn this one into a NAND. So it has the built-in inverter here. Has the delay here, set for 0.5 seconds. The delay and the NAND feed into each other in a loop. We have a power switch, and this time, instead of going from the delay straight to the LED, we'll go from the delay to the inverter to change the output. Let's try it again. Okay, when it's on, it's working the way we want to. Ah, and now it powers off completely. So what's the difference? What is the difference between this set that uses 1, 2, 3 blocks in its cycle, and this, which uses 2 blocks in its cycle? They both use 5 blocks altogether, but for the cycle to complete, this one takes 1 block longer. Should that make a difference? I'd like to talk about something called gate delay. Although I am using a delay gate, gate delay itself is a little bit different. This is going to take me a minute to set up, but I want to show you. Do you see the delay output for this one? The delay is set at 0.5 seconds. I've set this one at 1 second. I've set this one at 1.5 seconds. If you're having trouble seeing it on my wiring tools information pane, here it is. This one's at 2 seconds, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, all the way up to 10 seconds. I'm going to connect the switch to this one, and to this one, and to this one, and to this one, all the way down. And I am all hooked up. As you can see, I have an amazing 20 wires running all the way down, and each one is set at a half-second interval longer than the one before it. On this side, I also have delays, and they are all set at 0.5 seconds, each and every one. And what I'm going to do on this side is I'm going to go from the switch to the first delay, and from the first delay to the second, and from the second to the third, and so on. Now, as I continue on, each of these will be 5 seconds, so this one's set at 5 seconds, 0.5 seconds, sorry, this one's set at 0.5 seconds, this one is set at 1 second, this one is set at 0.5 seconds after this one has finished, so together this one should go off at 1 second. So I'm going to finish connecting all of these, which in total, all 20 will add up to be 10 seconds long. And then I'm also going to connect each side to an LED in the middle, one beside the other. So I'll finish up with those delays and making the connections to the LEDs. Okay, we are all hooked up. All the delays on this side are connected directly to the switch. And on this side, only the first one is connected to the switch, and each delay is connected to the one before it. But mathematically speaking, these should go off, the two LEDs on each side should go off at the same time. This is 0.5 seconds plus 0.5 seconds plus 0.5 seconds, which is a second and a half, and of course right across the way, this delay is set for a second and a half. Let's see what happens when we throw our switch. As you can see, the delays on the left that are hooked directly to the switch finish first. This one finishes significantly later, a full second about. That's because each time the signal has to go through a delay before it goes to the next one. It's like that block takes a second to process, hey, I've got a signal, what should I do with it? Oh yeah, I'm a delay, I'm going to hold on to it for a second. And then it holds on to it for a half a second before sending it on. I'm using delays, which is much, much slower, so we can really see how slow it goes. But we can do it with something supposedly instantaneous. Here I have the same setup. All of the ones on the left side are connected directly to the switch. All of the blocks on the right side, only the first is connected to the switch, and then each block is connected to the one after. These are all OR gates, which, as you remember, follows a general rule that any signal will output true. So you only have to connect it once, and it sends the signal down the line. What a difference. Here I've jumped to the other side and given us a platform so we can see it from the other end. Turn the switch. The only thing slowing this side down is the gate delay, the time it takes for each block to process what it's supposed to do with the signal. Of course, down at the lower end, it happens almost at the same time. 1 block or 2 difference. Doesn't make that much of a difference. But as you start building, remember that the more you use, the more blocks you use, the more gates you use, whether it's logic gate, delay gate, inverter gate, the more of these you use, the longer it will take to process a signal. This becomes really important if you're trying to time signals to meet together. Whenever possible, try to have one delay or fewer delays connected to several items, instead of several delays trying to race each other to a finish line. Otherwise, you will have problems. What does this mean for the difference between our two little clocks? Again, it's so few, the difference between 2 blocks and 3, that a gate delay doesn't matter that much in the long run. The difference between, say, 50 cycles a minute and, like, I think 45, 48 cycles per minute, not that big a deal. But if speed is important to you, then this configuration, with a cycle that only goes through 2 blocks, will be slightly faster than the one that goes through 3. If speed is not so important, or you don't care that it goes a tiny bit slower on this one than on this one, Then as far as outputs and the function of your switch go, both of these configurations are the same, and you can use whichever one you feel most comfortable with. Let's go ahead and connect up our beacon. Here's our original setup with just the inverter and the delay, and the other delays and their connections to the beacons are extremities. The real cycle happens between these two blocks. I'll rotate the inverter so we can more easily see it. Here I've put the output of the inverter next to the input of the delay, and with the arrows you can really see the cycle. Which one should we use? Which one should we go with? Since we've just learned this one, I'll use it. We want the switch to go to a NAND gate, the NAND to the delay to the inverter, and the inverter finally to the light, or in our case, the beacon. Mind if I borrow you? And you. So we know our last one will be the inverter, the delay, a NAND gate, and I'm going to go ahead and change that now so I don't forget. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and change the delay. Remember, on our beacon it was 3 seconds. 3 seconds on, 3 seconds off. And our switch. Switch to the gate. Gate to the delay back to the gate, and the delay to the inverter, and the inverter to the beacon. And since we connected it to our beacon, which already has a variable input, it automatically connected to another object with the same variable, the next delay. Let's try it. 3 seconds, and it lights. 2 seconds later, and there we go. It's working well, and now we have a power switch that eventually shuts every part of it off into a nice resting state. That was all for this supplemental video. Something important that I wanted to share, but I didn't quite have time to fit into our third video in the series. Gate delay is the time it takes for any individual block to process the signal before it sends it on. The bigger your machine, the more important gate delay becomes, and you must always be careful not to have different gates and different sets of blocks racing against each other, or you may have problems with your output. If speed is important to you, a smaller cycle may be preferable. If speed is not important to you, then sometimes you have multiple options. I hope this video was helpful to you, and if it was, please let me know in the comments. Until next time, take care.